Hello everyone, Elijah here. Welcome you all to another EpicSeven video. And today we'll be discussing and looking over the two new heroes that will be coming out in the next couple of weeks. We have a RGB hero by the name of Kane, as well as our new Moonlight hero, Yufine. So very excited to check those out. Before we get started, please remember to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts about these heroes. Will you be summoning for them? Let me know down in the comments below. So yeah, let's go ahead and get this started with the Kane preview.
I'm Kane. Now, I'll make you wish you never met me. The weak are nothing but prey! Did you really think you could beat me?
Alrighty, here we have Kane. These are his stats. Really high attack. He has some crit chance. Imprints in his, not imprints, but in his awakening, he has some crit chance. Just your standard DPS. Looking at his skill 2, Force Awakening, at the start of the first battle gains 50 Fighting Spirit upon receiving lethal damage, grants immortality and vampirism for 1 turn, and resets cooldown of his Feast of Predation, which I'm pretty sure is his S3. Can only be activated once every 9 turns after an ally attacks. If the target is afflicted with bleed, it gains 10 Fighting Spirit, and after the ally attacks, when Fighting Spirit is full, consume all Fighting Spirit to make the caster enrage for 2 turns. Now, automatically, given that he has some type of synergy with bleeds and things like that, and you want your allies to then attack, there's only a handful of heroes that actually inflict bleed, all of which are PvE heroes, which kind of already tells me this is a PvE hero for the most part, given just how his kit is set up. But who knows, maybe we can do some weird counter, you know, anti-cleave shenanigans, since he does have the grant immortality in the same way that like Kayron does and stuff like that. And we have his S3, Feast of Predation, attacks the enemy by unleashing their power, and grants increased attack greater to the caster for 2 turns, and the damage dealt increased proportional to the number of debuffs inflicted on the target. So you definitely want to synergize him with units that can inflict a ton of debuffs. And he has a skill cooldown is decreased by 2 turns when he uses his soul burn. And it's only 10 souls, which is like really nice. Like you can turn cycle his S3 pretty rapidly in a controlled PvE environment. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. He already has only a 4 turn cooldown, and then decreasing that, like you can turn cycle that pretty rapidly. And then we have a Hammer Time. His S1 attacks all enemies with a hammer and inflicts bleeding for 2 turns, and when the caster is enraged, ignores effect resistance. That's pretty nice. And when it is the caster turns, activates Rock Smash as an extra attack, which then he just attacks all enemies. Um, and then he dispels 1 debuff from the caster, so that's pretty nice. Very much a, yeah, I keep saying this, but very much a PvE like pro kit. I'm trying to see how this could even fit into PvP. For the most part, I just don't think that bleed, anytime you see a hero that has bleeding, it just never really works out in a PvP environment. I don't know what that is, but every hero that you know that has bleed, you are probably not seeing them in any type of PvP environment. Then we have his artifact, Triumph's Descent. When attacking, increases the damage dealt by 12% with an additional 3% for each debuff inflicted on the enemy up to a maximum of 24%. Perfectly synergizes with his kit. You're probably using him in a PvE situation. You're probably pairing him with heroes that stacks a bunch of bleeds and defense breaks, and maybe even throw in a target debuff or unbuffable. Just all the debuffs, right? You just want to stack them all, and then he just does a ton of damage to those heroes, or I guess those boss monsters. It's been a while since we had like or I guess it hasn't been a while. I think our past 2 RGB heroes have been kind of dedicated PvE heroes for the most part for new content that they release in the game. So that's pretty interesting. So yeah, it's nice to get our handful of PvE heroes. However, I really wish they would just continue to add more PvE content for these heroes to be relevant in. Anyway, let me know if you'll be summoning for Kane. I definitely think he's kind of a skip, given the fact that he is a little more PvE oriented, and the only PvE hero I would ever summon for is Tamarin, if you are going to summon for one. But yeah, now for the hero that I am a little bit more excited for because of how unique their kit is, we have Abyssal Yufine. Boy, oh boy, does she seem interesting. Let's go ahead and get into it.
There's another side to me. And when she comes out, not even I know how to stop her. I hate the darkness. Because it hides your suffering. You like it when I hurt you?
Before we even get into her stats, that face, that whole like she's about to like go like sicko mode, insane. I love that. I love that artwork. Beautiful. It's not even like she has a crazy S3 animation. It's just that one little scene there. It just really captures like everything you need to know about this hero. Anyway, onto her stats. Very high defense. And then I guess pretty all around stats elsewhere. And she has some critical hit chance in her and not imprints. I keep wanting to say imprints. In her awakenings, as well as an imprint concentration of a defense. So definitely your defense, well, I want to say defense scaling, but I guess for when you look at this, you're going to assume it's a defense scaling DPS, but it's a little, I guess it is, but it's not exactly. It's kind of complicated. I don't know. It's a little weird. But onto her skill 2 passive, Inner Abyss. When the enemy is not an elite or boss monster, reduces the effect of combat readiness, increases granted to the enemy by 30%, and it can goes up to 50% based on awakenings. This effect does not stack with other passive effects of the same name, and when attacked, gains 20 fighting spirit and has a 30% chance to counterattack. And at the start of the turn, when the fighting spirit is full, dispel all debuffs from the caster. Okay, a whole lot. But in her S2, basically, combat readiness increase effects are reduced by 50%, and it can be stacked with Politis. They do say that in the video that it can be stacked with Politis, which will then make it a 100% combat readiness, reducing effects of increase. You know what I'm trying to say. It will make it 100% of a reduce of the effects of combat readiness increases. So that's pretty interesting. I don't really know if those two heroes synergize well together. I don't really think they would pair too well together, but I guess once this unit comes out, people can do different teams and kind of like test things out and see where she is the most played or where she can see the most play. And then she has a built-in counter set for free, so that's pretty nice. And yeah, she gets a little bit of some type of self, I guess, cleanse with being able to spell all buffs when her rage is full. So very, very, very cool. And then we have her bread and butter, her S3 Frenzied Strike inflicts trauma on the caster for 3 turns before attacking all enemies. Dispel all buffs and decrease combat range by 50%. Ignores effect resistance. Just straight up. No soul burn, just ignores effect resistance. Boy, oh boy, don't we love seeing that? That's just, yeah. Anyway, um, trauma decreases defense by 70%, but increases attack and speed by 100%. If the defense prior to the effect of trauma is 2000 or higher, the stat increase effects are doubled. I thought this was so interesting to me. Also, a side note, if you play League of Legends, this is literally like Casante's kid in the sense that whenever he uses his ultimate, he sacrifices his defenses for damage. Like that's his whole, thing. And I really, really like how they have this very unique kit for her to kind of like do the same thing. She sacrifices her tankiness to then do a ton of damage. Kind of don't really know how you would build her. Probably tons of defense, obviously. HP. I don't know if you would go for like a mid-range speed, not too fast, not too slow. And then probably, obviously crit rate, crit damage. Maybe some effect resistance, honestly, just to like avoid those pesky little debuffs here and there. Because, like, just, I don't know, she might be super stat hungry depending on how things go. You can completely ignore attack, and you're just relying on getting the trauma buff. And since she doesn't dispel, or I guess cleanse, I guess you need to consume 100 fighting spirit to do this. So she will get a cleanse. So if there is any unbuffable on her, she'll cleanse that so that she will get the trauma, I guess, debuff onto her because the color of the skill, it does look like a debuff, not necessarily a buff per se. And then we have her skill 1, Dragon's Breath. Attacks all enemies with Dragon's Breath with a 45, which goes up to, I think, 60% chance to decrease attack for 1 turn. Damage dealt increased proportional to the caster's defense, and when the caster is granted trauma, activates Unbrittle Outburst instead of Dragon's Breath. You can Soul Burn to increase the damage, and the Unbrittle's Outburst attacks the enemy with a massive blade, penetrating the target's defense by 70%. Okay, so what I'm gathering here is that her basic S skill 1 scales with her defense, and then when she, inflicts trauma onto herself, then she has a more attack scaling S1. I think that's what I'm gathering here. So it kind of like switches. It starts off as a defense scaling S1, and then it goes, that's an AoE attack, and then it switches to a single target attack scaling S1 that pins the target defense by 70%. I would say that's pretty cool. I wonder if this applies to counterattacks as well, right? I would imagine the counterattacks still work, and she'll just have a 70% defense pen counterattack. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Shu, except Shu is a lot higher. I think it's 90% for Shu. And yeah, so it's kind of like that middle of the road of defense pen heroes. Very interesting to say the least. She does seem kind of like a solo DPS hero in a way. You kind of just want to have her and some supporters to keep her alive, to support her, to sustain for her, things like that. And you see this in her demo video where she is paired with Abigail, who kind of like gives her that chance of survivability with the immortality and vampiric if she goes to lethal range with her 8 HP. So yeah, very interesting here, very interesting kit. Let me know if you are going to pull for her. I might. I have my guaranteed ML summon, or I guess guaranteed ML5, because I'm at pity right now. So I might get her. I'm considering. We'll just have to see what the other theory crafters have to say about the unit. I might wait a week or two when she is released just to see what the general consensus is about her kit and how usable she is. But yeah, that's it for our new heroes, Abyssal Yufine and Kane. I'm excited more so for Abyssal Yufine, seeing how she works and seeing what she gets to do, or maybe she might change the meta up a little bit or introduce a new, completely unique playstyle or draft. Kane, a PvE hero for the most part. Um, Maybe Guild Wars, I don't really know. I think he's just really more so made for the Rift and all that kind of good stuff. But yeah, if you did enjoy the video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see you all in the next one. Peace out.